Just waiting for my feedback here. We do have comments coming up. All right, it looks like we are live. Just 1 second. All right, one more step, and I think we should be good to go. Right here. Yes, we are live. 18 people in the house. Welcome to Nana Kwaku Live. I'm joined by Mr. Agaba, live from Kampala. You guys should be very nice to us because sometimes we get technical difficulties when we're doing this international interview. So uh, we're gonna get straight to the point without wasting so much time. Mr. Agaba, can you like briefly describe who you are, what you do, like just briefly, like who is Mr. Agaba?
Yeah, sure. First of all, Nana, thank you for having me on your channel. Um, Appreciate you taking interest in hearing my perspective on all of this stuff. It's kind of crazy to think that, all of this is taking place, but it is what it is, you know. So Agaba Tumusiime is my name. I'm American born, of Ugandan heritage, grew up in the US, and moved back to Uganda about 15 years ago. I am a businessman, entrepreneur, active in agribusiness. I'm a farmer, but I'm also a just guy who likes to talk to people and share my opinions on certain things, and hence why some people may have seen me sharing my opinions on different podcasts on Kanganda and the like. So, yeah, again, man, just regular, everyday, normal guy. Happy to have conversations with smart people.
All right, man. Hey, I didn't know you were American born. I thought you just came here for school and and went back. But okay, so that tells a lot. Where when you were in the U.S., where did you live? What states did you live in?
I was born and raised in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. Um, Went to high school in Maryland, attended a private school in Maryland, and did my college years. Started in Atlanta at Morehouse College, finished up at Towson University in Baltimore, and then I did my MBA at Penn State University. I saw somebody previously had mentioned that I went to Princeton. It wasn't Princeton, it was Penn
Oh,
State
Penn. Okay,
University.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
What is that one
So I
at
finished my
Pittsburgh? Right? Is that Pittsburgh?
it's in central Pennsylvania, a few hours from Pittsburgh.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah.
man. Um, what was your transition back to Uganda? Was there a lot of culture shock going back? That's just something I know it's unrelated. I just got curious. I wanted to know what that transition
Well,
was like.
thankfully, as I was growing up, my family and I were blessed to be able to travel to Uganda frequently. So I knew Uganda. I had been here. I had been very well uh, immersed in the culture, so to speak, when it came to being around the people and knowing the people and understanding, what my family was like out here, and the vast difference between what life was like for me and my brothers growing up in America versus the life that my cousins and aunties and uncles experienced here in Uganda. Um, but I had never lived here. Now, living here is different than visiting for a couple of weeks.
Right.
So when I came here and I decided to make moves that were going to set me up for a longer life here, I absolutely experienced culture shock in terms of doing business, in terms of some of the American attitudes that I had around how I wanted to conduct my business, driving toward wanting to see results happen immediately, as quick as possible, in an environment where people were a lot more laid back. things were very relationship driven, where in America things are very much of a meritocracy. The most capable and most qualified and most skilled person usually wins. But over here, so much of your success is reliant upon who you know and the relationships that you are able to cultivate. And so, I've been back in Uganda now for 15 years. And
Wow.
so a huge part of the learning curve for me was navigating the differences and the nuances between what life in America was all about and how I wanted to create a life for myself here.
Good stuff, man. Now let's get to the thing. It sucks that sometimes we meet um, during unusual circumstances, but we want to obviously address the elephant in the room. So I did key some moments. I'm gonna get through the moments and hopefully take out the rambles
Sure.
and like just go through it frame by frame and ask and give you the opportunity to speak your version of the story. So I will get to
By the way,
the
I'll tell you right now, I haven't watched this video.
okay,
A few
okay.
people sent it to me, but I haven't bothered to watch it because I was just like, I was unbothered by it. But then, I figured, might as well speak my piece. So here we go.
Right. I mean, and life is all about image, and if somebody like puts your name out there and you don't get the chance to speak on it, especially in a world where everything is now on the internet. And you said you've had some viral moments doing podcasting, then I figured you needed at least a chance to explain yourself, bro. You know what I mean? Like, what
Yep.
is true, what is not true. At least have the chance to explain yourself to a mainly American audience so that we know your. Of the story. So
Most
I
definitely. I
will
appreciate
I
it.
will start with I think it's 314 here. Let's go to right about here. This will take
If
us a
you
little.
guys remember the early versions of the Repat podcast, and if he ever got a problem with what I'm saying, I'll put all the receipts out there of his homeboys that got fired over at UBL. It can get real messy and get ugly real quick. Best thing he can do is beg me to take this shit down. It's the best thing he can do. All right? Anything else, he ain't got no leverage. Because he know I got killer receipts that are mind-blowing. It's career ending for sure. So that's number one. 2023, I meet this guy by the name of Agaba, also known as Master Gabs. I was on my way to Rhonda. I was with Rachel. It was 2022. This guy happened to be on the same plane as me, okay? I had just been back in Africa like 4 or 5 months, something like that. I was living in Poland, had just moved back. I had been to Kampala, but I never had lived there. I'd stayed there during COVID, stuff like that. So, this dude comes and, he got an American style accent. He like, yo, man, I've been watching you for a long time. This was right in the same year that Kevin Samuels had passed away. So, all right, the year after, rather. So basically, he had saw me in the airport. We was on the same flight on Rwanda Air to Kigali. So, I'm like, okay. He was like, he works at the time. He's working at UBL. He was what was he doing there? He was like the former brand manager at Uganda Warji. And then
Okay, so on this part, he's talking about how you met. He was going up and down, but can you briefly describe like if this part of what he's saying is true, like how you guys met? What was that conversation like?
No, that's right on point. It's accurate. We met at Entebbe Airport in the departure lounge, waiting for a flight to Kigali. I recognized him. I had seen Kanganda as a channel, and I had appreciated some of the content that I saw for sure. I thought that the Repat podcast was interesting, and I thought that the shows around business features and kind of taking people on an inside look at what some of the businesses are that they were interacting with. I thought that was all pretty cool. So, I was definitely interested in just introducing myself to the brother, making sure that he knew that I respected his content and what he had going on. And, my motivation for bringing up the Repat podcast was kind of like, I'm a repat. I am the definition of a repat, somebody who grew up in America, has returned to Uganda for the purposes of establishing a life. So, perhaps there could be an opportunity for me to share some of my opinions on some of the topics that you guys are discussing. If, if you happen to be interested. But it was kind of abundantly clear to me that, he was a bit not interested at that particular point. I mean, he was nice, he was polite enough, but I came later to understand that, he had kind of not really had the best opinion of people's intentions and what they wanted, and if they wanted to come through and take advantage or try and get some kind of opportunity from him and his whole ecosystem. So
Do you think he was do you think he
that
was
was kind
like
of,
do you think he just had a general distrust for Africans, or was it based on an experience he had had? Because he said he had just returned back after a brief visit, right?
well, I mean, I don't know specifically because I haven't really asked too much around the backstory as to why he was so distrustful of people. But I mean, it makes sense. At the end of the day, I myself, in my effort to try and make relationships and make things shake for myself here, I got my fingers burnt a bunch of times. So I found it understandable. I wasn't really offended by it. I didn't really have an issue with it. I just found that, as an American guy trying to do things here in Uganda and or in Africa, period, there's a level of apprehension that comes along with that. And so I didn't find it to be out of order by any means. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay, got it. All right, I'm gonna go to the for one of the first allegations he makes. That'll be 14.
So, I start having events at the restaurant with the Pan African Dating Show. Okay. And what ended up happening was Agaba knew that in order for me to be protected as Kinganda or the Pan African Dating Show, I needed something called an MOU, a memorandum of understanding. Okay. Now, as a YouTuber that has not been in the corporate world, again, that's also my fault, my due diligence. But again, I trusted this man. I get this guy at my house. He on my dating shows. He on my podcast. I'm paying him to advise me. Sometimes $1,000 a month, $1,300 a month. I mean, I'm bringing other people. So whenever other folks would come visit me from the States, he would get my network from them. He's a complete, I would say he's like a complete, in my honest opinion, this is what he is. He is like, what do you call that? He's like very parasitic. Okay. So he would just get all my contacts from people coming onto the show, and he would build his network, and we had our diaspora group, and he would come in, oh yeah, I'm building value. But at the same time, he would be trying to design plans for them and then charge them like $4,000 or $5,000 for a recommendation. Just gatekeeping is what he is.
So with this one, like for me personally, I don't see, like, if business school 101, right? You're supposed to build a network regardless of where it comes from, and your networks are from people that you know, right? Every business school would tell you that. So I didn't see anything wrong with that. And most people leverage their connections they have. Like, for example, if I'm looking for a job here in the US, before I go to the job boards, I would typically call former classmates, other friends. So I'll use my network first, right? So I understand what he was trying to say there, but I'm looking at this as If you're my friend and I advise you and you pay me and we have an established friendship and a business, right, partnership going on, then whichever leads that come to you, I also see it as if I also have a relationship with those leads. The question is, were you charging these leads for work that you were doing, or I mean, was there any $5,000 that you were charging? What was those charges for? What were you giving in return? And was that was that explained to whoever you charged, like from what he's saying?
Okay, two things here. Number one, yes, I was providing Oshay with advisory support, advisory services when it came to some of the strategic objectives that he wanted to achieve within his business, right? But there was never a time, not one time, when Oshay paid me $1,000 for anything. Okay. Um, yeah, he would pay me, but it wasn't that much money. So I think that's one part of the information that's very inaccurate, right? I think from my perspective, in terms of the value of the advice that he was being provided with, the amount of time that we spent having conversations, because remember, like consulting and advisory services are also an issue of how much time are you investing. It's not just about the results. It's about how much time are you investing to have conversations with this person. Are you making yourself available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Well, will I pick up your phone when you call me 3 and 4 times a week and we talk for an hour and a half over whatever it is that you happen to want to talk to at that particular time? That's how accessible as I was. So I wasn't being paid as much as he says I was being paid. That's number one. But I would say, yes, that's truthful in that he and I had a working relationship in that regard. Now, as far as the network that I was introduced to, there was a group of African Americans that I ended up being connected to through Oshay. And there was only one instance where I actually made an effort to have a business relationship with a couple that was trying to do something in the FMCG food related business space. Now, Oshay himself enthusiastically recommended that I work with them. He recommended to them that they engage me as a consultant so that they could rather further their interest in providing food products, get them into supermarkets and things of that nature. I wrote a proposal, presented to them. Not one dime was exchanged. Not 1 cent, not 1 penny, not 1 shilling was exchanged. If anything, I gave them a very well scripted playbook around marketing and business development that they could have used and taken and used without paying me a dime. Which I don't want to say what they did with it, because at the end of the day, it's not my business what they do with how they run their company. But it's 100% factually incorrect that I collected any money from anybody that Oshay ever introduced me to. Period. Not true.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, because I've watched 3 videos after this rant, and he hasn't said specifically. Well, he talks about the amount, but he hasn't said specifically who you took the money from. Like, okay, he took money from this person that was in my network, right? He just says, oh, somebody in my network, but doesn't say who. He comes up with $5,000, like we just played, and you're saying that you didn't even you literally you worked for free. You gave these guys your proposals. In my world, when
Yeah, I mean, but that's the nature of business as a consultant, right? Sometimes you have to give an indication of how good your ideas are, and you have to sell yourself and pitch yourself to these people so that they can feel like I deserve, or rather, I'm interested in investing in bringing this person on board to help me grow my business. Um, the oh shit, sorry about that.
take your time.
The financial compensation that was being proposed at the time, at the time and the way that they and I were having conversations around how much money I was meant to be paid, um, it, it never clicked. So the relationship never went anywhere. Sorry about the lighting issue.
No, no, it's fine.
But
It's fine.
the relationship never went anywhere. So
Yeah.
it ended before it began, pretty much. But that's the numbers game. That's how business goes. And I didn't take it personally. I didn't feel any way about it. But it's 100% untrue for it to be suggested or even claimed that I took money, charged money, asked for money from anyone that I ever met through him. It's patently false.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. I'm going to go to, this one might be a little bit personal, but that's one of the things that he talked about. Let's go to 15. That's not too far from where we currently are. So I'm just going to let it play through, and I'll get your reaction to it. He talks about some disrespect on a podcast.
And so he
Sure.
introduced me to another person that was going to be kind of controlling. They were basically trying to control my money and trying to keep me in the dark, and they were splitting me off the top. All right. So let me say, for example, he would introduce me to this other his buddy of his, and he knows that I have no MOU, memorandum of understanding. I didn't know this. I didn't find out until basically there was a podcast in which he disrespected me, which I'm gonna talk about a little bit later. But I didn't have a memorandum of understanding. When I didn't have a memorandum of understanding.
Okay, so two things here. What was he trying to do that required an MOU? Was the process explained to him in detail, what the expectation was going to be? And then what is that disrespect on a podcast? I think he addresses it at some point, but if you want to get ahead of it, that's fine. I will replay exactly what he said then, but you can catch it now.
So regarding the MOU, there were a series of promotional activities that were going to be run for the purpose of being able to create content and build promotional momentum for the YouTube channel, the Pan-African Dating Show. And so there was a bunch of ideation around what kind of an idea can take place. And the Pan-African Dating Show team decided that they wanted to do a speed dating event, a live speed dating event. And because of the experience that I had with regard to, event management and things of that nature, I was giving them advice from an advisory perspective on how to set the scene, the X's and O's and all of that stuff. And the person who operated the venue where the event ended up being hosted was a friend and colleague of mine who I introduced him to, right? And so the negotiations around how the venue was going to be used and how the event was going to go down, a lot of that was handled by Oshay. A lot of that was handled by his team. There were a whole bunch of other intelligent individuals, that he had on his team who were very instrumental in bringing this event to life. Now, one of the things that I need to be very crystal clear about is that there was never a single time when any dime that passed out of his business was paid to any vendor, any partner, any person who presented a bill or an invoice or a receipt to Kanganda. None of that was my responsibility, nor was it my purview in terms of how the monies were paid, whether they paid them via cash, bank transfer, sent checks, mobile money, whatever that wasn't my responsibility. So I didn't have access to anything related to the cash flows around these events, right? And there were actually several circumstances, several instances when I looked at what they were intending for the budget of these events to be, and I said, yo, you got to stop spending. Chill. Remove this from the budget. Remove that from the budget. Spend less. If anything, I was trying to be influential to make sure that the guy didn't overspend. So, again, I have a feeling that because the relationship went sour, he's come to believe that I had all of these nefarious objectives around why I was interested in having an association with him in the first place. But it's just not true. None
Okay.
of it actually happened. Now, as far as the disrespect goes, there was an instance where we had a podcast shoot on a certain day. This was probably around September-ish, August, September-ish of 2024, right? We were shooting a podcast and we were introducing ourselves, and during the introduction, I made a joke. And it was a bad joke. Admittedly, it was a terrible joke, basically.
Okay.
And it was a joke, but he was the butt of the joke, right? And you know how, like, I don't know if you watch the Joe Budden podcast at all, right? And
I've
or
seen a
other
few
podcasts where
clips.
the hosts have I don't so but there are podcasts where the hosts have a banter between each other, how they can kind of poke fun at or just kind of have jokes between each other, right? And it's okay and it's acceptable. It's not looked at as a malicious thing. So this joke that I made fell flat. In fact, we had to stop and redo the whole thing and just cut that whole thing out of the episode. And I recognized immediately that there was going to be some awkwardness and tension. And so after we shut the whole thing, I said to the guy straight up, I was like, you know what, that was very stupid, bad joke. I apologize. I'm sorry. Right.
Okay, I was
And at
gonna
the
ask
time
that.
he didn't. Yeah. Huh?
I was gonna ask you if you apologize. So you did apologize, right? You went
Oh
up to
yeah,
him.
for sure. For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
All
For
right.
sure. And
Go ahead.
so
I interrupt you.
at the moment he was, I mean, he was annoyed by it, but he didn't seem to be like, sorry, man, Jesus Christ.
Take your time. It's all right. People understand. I caught you at a bad time. There was a mix up with the time zone because
Sorry
the
about
time
that,
has
man.
changed
This
in
is
the
kind of
U.S.
painful, you right?
There was a mix up. I'm letting the audience know there was a bit of a mix up with our timing, time zones here in the U.S. and in Kampala because we just went through that daylight savings crap. So I had it.
Yeah.
I didn't
So
schedule it
anyway,
well, so Agaba was outside having dinner, and he had to rush in and do this. So you guys should bear with us. Go ahead, bro.
yeah. So anyway, so what I was saying was, I didn't realize he had taken it as hard as he did at the moment, and so I kind of left thinking that I did apologize and we would move on from it. And a couple of days later, I got a message from him, basically letting me know in no uncertain terms that he felt like what I did was, in fact, disrespectful because I basically made a joke at his expense in front of a whole room full of people that work for him, right?
Okay.
And I didn't realize I had cut him that deep. But he really took offense to it, and essentially he just let me know that I showed myself to be the type of person that he didn't want to be associated with, didn't want me to be friends with. So I'm blocking you. I'm not calling you. I'm not talking to you. And until I say otherwise, you're effectively cut off. Which I felt was a bit of an overreaction, but I mean, you can't tell a person how to feel about certain things, right?
Right. Right.
So um, 2 weeks later, I let 2 weeks pass, and 2 weeks later, I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. Because I mean, on the real, like, I actually was truly valuing the friendship that I had with Oshay. It wasn't really about a business or a transaction relationship. I was like, you know what? Much as we had a little bit of conflict, I mean, as men, we can talk it out and we can move on. So I went to his house and I knocked on the door, and the maid opened the door. And once he saw that it was me at the door, he angrily slammed the door in my face and was basically like, "What the fuck are you doing here? Get the fuck out of here." You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. So you were
And
still angry 2 weeks in, is what you're saying.
yeah, that was 2 weeks later.
Okay.
So I was like, dude, I actually came here because I wanted to, again, take another shot at apologizing to your face this time rather than doing it over the phone. So if you're not interested in talking to me, what can I do about that? Right? So I left. And he and I didn't speak again.
Okay. How long ago was this? Roughly. Now you
Uh,
don't have to be exact. I just want to see how long.
September of 24.
Okay. Oh wow. It's been
Yeah.
quite a while.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been a while.
All right. I'm gonna cut to 17 where he talks about the Kanganda anniversary. I think it was a 5-year anniversary at Bailey's. There was on Bailey's allegations that he made. Let me play that and
Sure.
then I'll catch your reaction on that.
Sure.
Still, but I asked to work with you. I've begged and pleaded to work with you. But I'm using you. And plus, when I was in Dubai, man, can you bring my wife back some popcorn? Yeah, man, I got you. Man, my wife need. I had a blender, a Ninja blender that I had bought. He was like, man, and the Subi shop know it. Shout out to my brother, man. My brother TJ know it. See, that's my brother for real. I love him. He's helped me so much, man. Like in Uganda, I had a brand new Ninja blender. He was like, yo, man, can I get that for my wife for her birthday? I got you, no problem. Come pick it up. Boom. Blender cost me like $200 and was shipping another $100, $300. I would do stuff like that. I help him out. My Kanganda experience, I had a 5-year anniversary party. He kept me there with Bailey's. February 2nd, 2024 at Motive, where Agaba had me pay an agency out of my own money after I already had a bar. And if he say I'm lying, then I'll put the receipts out there. Let him say I'm lying. Let him say I'm not telling the truth.
Okay, so you caught that, right? What is your reaction to it?
Um, all right. I don't remember the whole popcorn conversation, but it may have been. I don't know. But one thing I do know is this, and one thing I can give Oshay credit for is he's a generous guy. You know what I mean? He's a generous guy. He would always be very willing to offer stuff to people, right? And so there was a Ninja blender that he had in his home. He actually had 2 of them. He had 2.
Those are good. I know
And
those ones. Yeah.
absolutely. And so I was like, okay, you want to buy 2 blenders, one of which you're not really using at all ever. So I asked him, I was like, yes, can I get that blender for my wife? And I didn't think it was that big of a deal because, again, like, we were friends, you know what I'm saying? And in terms of like the mutual exchange of value, I thought it was legit that, like, you just have an appliance that's sitting in your house doing nothing. It's not out of order for me to ask for it. If you told me, bro, I paid $200 for this thing, pay me for it, I would have said, yes, sure. But he didn't ask me to, and I thanked him for it. She appreciated it. She thanked him for it. So that was a kind gesture on his behalf. 100%. 100%. Absolutely. As far as the Kanganda anniversary goes, I think guys need to understand the nature of how brand marketing works. And the way that it works here in Uganda may not be exactly the same way that brand marketing deals and partnerships work in other countries. Excuse me for 1 second, sorry. I just
Take your
need
time.
to plug my phone into a charger. Just give me 2 seconds, yeah?
You got enough charge though, right?
Just give me 2 seconds.
All right. Take your time.
Hold on for 2 seconds, yeah? All right, so sorry, Nana, I apologize, man.
Take your time, bro.
So sometimes when you're trying to get deals with brands, it's not very easy for somebody to just say, you have a great idea, make it work. You know what I mean? Brands have budgets and they have a lot of things that they need to prioritize before they can say, let me put my branding out there and let them show up at your event. So there was an event, the Kengana anniversary. It's a great opportunity for Kengana to do a partnership with a brand. And it would have legitimately been a great opportunity for the brand, 100%, because the audience was there. The brand would have done well to market to that audience. Now, I wasn't a key decision maker at the brand, but there are often times when you can say to the brand, I need your setup, I need your look and feel to add value to my brand. And the brand will be like, if you purchase some product, then we will give you our brand setup and all of that stuff. And it's been such a long time ago that I can't remember the exact details of the conversation. But I think the general suggestion that's being made here is that I somehow profited off of the fact that Kengana needed to pay money for access to all of this. And I didn't. It's disappointing that that came across that way. And I remember the frustration of having to deal with the brand in that moment. But the whole gatekeeping, I was trying to open doors. I was trying to create relationships and I was trying to build linkages, not tear a brother down, not benefit myself and pocket money in exchange for frustrating somebody. Like that wasn't my intention. So, I mean, I think that was misinterpreted. If it felt like the brand or the brewery or the business was trying to be resistant to the opportunity for what should have seemed like a no-brainer of a partnership, that wasn't a decision that was mine to make. But again, I wasn't in a position to be signing deals on behalf of Kangana. I was introducing and making linkages so that they could deal with the people that they wanted to have business relationships with.
Okay. Oshay, I see your questions. I'm not ignoring them. I want him to get through the video, and then when he's done responding to the video, I can play your questions for him to answer it. I'm trying to be as objective and transparent as it gets. Me and you have our own issues, but I don't want this to be about me and you. I just want it to be strictly about the scope of what we've discussed, right? It has to be about those allegations that you've made, and he gets to also, because he doesn't have a platform. He doesn't have the platform that you have, right? So at least he gets to explain his side of the story. That's what we're trying to achieve here. Let's go to 23, where he talks about how much money he spent doing so these events that he does, are they profitable? Like, is it just an event where you just spend money and people know that Oshay spent money, or do people pay to come to these events? Do you get some of your money back? I'd say, what do you gain from making these events?
So the whole idea behind the events was about brand notoriety, brand presence, right? sometimes you spend money on an event so that you could create awareness for your brand amongst the audience of people that you want to know about you. And you don't really have a product to sell because, mind you, the platform was was the Pan African Dating Show. So the platform was a YouTube channel that had a lot of great content that we wanted to build an audience, gain followers, drive awareness, and drive attention to the channel. So there wasn't a cash value in terms of what could be returned. There were no tickets being sold to these events. There was no cash revenue that was being generated by these events. So yes, there was some substantial money being spent by the brand. Now, I did make mention of the fact that you needed to attach KPIs to these events. What are you doing in terms of, measuring how this impacts your online activity is part of the conversations that we would have. But I never saw the bottom line of what was spent because I didn't have access to the bank records. I wasn't in a position to even spend any of that money. So I'd never asked. I never knew. I had an idea of what budgets they were working with. And I knew that sometimes the spend went over the budget. But if you were to ask me to say, Agaba, do you know exactly what was spent on this event in totality? Oshay would tell me ballpark figures, and there were substantial amounts of money. I won't dispute that. But none of that money passed through my hands. And none of it
Right.
ended up in my pocket either.
Okay. And how frequent were these events? Like how often would you have them?
I myself was involved with two events, the Pan African Dating Show event and the Kanganda Anniversary event. Two
Oh,
events.
so
I know
just
they
two
had
events,
more.
right?
Yeah, I know that they did more, but I personally was only involved in the two.
Okay. So if there's any accusation of scamming, then it'll come from those specific events only, right? There won't be any other stuff that he's done as far as events, right?
Again, no, I'm not here to talk about anything that I wasn't personally involved with. I just
Right.
wanted to make
Right.
sure that yeah,
No,
just
I'm trying to kind of stay in scope, but I want to make sure that uh, your hands are only involved in two events and that they can't accuse you of anything outside of those two events. If some other events didn't go well, then Agaba had nothing to do with it, right?
one, let me tell you this. Once I was effectively excommunicated from O'Shay's life, his business, and I mean, I regretted the fact that he and I had a fracture in our relationship. I take responsibility for saying something that offended him, but I never once took advantage of him. I never once victimized him or tried to benefit myself unfairly at his expense. That never happened. And
Okay.
so
Let me ask
again,
you this.
it's a sad case of a lot of misunderstanding that led to a lot of bad feelings. But I never once found myself in a scenario where I felt like I was getting one over on him. Never
Okay.
that.
Let me ask you this, and it might feel a little bit personal that, considering the fact that you guys are no longer friends, but how dear was he to you? Like, did you really like this person? Did you really consider him like in our African sense? Was he a real brother to you? Like, did it get to that point where he just wasn't a friend, but this was your bro?
We O'Shea and I had a genuine friendship, 100%. I saw it as a genuine friendship. We talked about a lot of positive and constructive things. And he encouraged me in a great deal. He encouraged me and he spoke a lot of positive things about me. He told me he had a very high opinion of me, and I appreciated that a lot. He encouraged me in a lot of moments when I wasn't in my best state of mind. And I feel like I returned that energy to him. There were probably one or two unfortunate instances where he didn't feel like I was being as loyal to him as I should have, and I wasn't demonstrating the type of loyalty that he demanded of the people that he was giving his close time and attention to. And I feel bad about that, but
Okay. And
I'm not a bad person, and I'm not a
based on
scammer.
what
That's for damn sure.
based on one of his comments, did you deliberately introduce him to people that he felt scammed him? Like, did you know any of the guys that you introduced to him had the potential of harming him financially or scamming him, or were you involved in with any of those guys with a hope to scam him or scheme some money off of the top?
I never introduced him to any of the people that I did with the intention of causing him frustration or harm. I never thought that anybody would do anything other than try and create a mutually beneficial situation. Because I saw that Kenganda, as a business, was a very skilled team of creators and individuals that had the opportunity to offer a platform that a lot of brands would benefit from. And so I tried to connect him with the brands that I felt were a best organic fit with that. Now, at a certain point, once the introduction was made, I took my hands off and I stopped paying attention. And I think in a lot of cases where those relationships went sour, those are conversations that I wasn't a part of. And I wasn't privy to the inner workings of what happened because I just wasn't there. And
Okay.
if I'm to be held responsible for the fallout from him having a bad experience with somebody that I introduced him to, then I'm sorry for that.
Okay. So, like, how in this is now more cultural with Uganda. How difficult is it to achieve what Oshay was trying to do in Uganda in terms of the climate, right? Like, what is the level of difficulty in achieving the things that he was trying to achieve?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult because it's a business category. It's kind of a thing that is not really known. People aren't really exposed to it like that. I mean, content creators here are looked at as, people who you can pay a tiny bit of money and they can put a reel up or something like that. But operating within the context of what Kenganda had already built by the time that I met him, that was a real business, a highly functioning business. And when a highly functioning business is trying to enter a scenario where they're doing deals with people that don't understand what they have to offer, it's frustrating. And I
Right.
tried to kind of be a bridge to communicate what the value proposition was that Kenganda could communicate and kind of help understand the importance of building relationships with people so that even if they don't necessarily understand the value proposition at first, let's just be somebody that they appreciate, that I want to work with them because, I think that these are, really talented and good people. But, you know,
Yeah.
I wasn't successful in that. I wasn't
I,
successful in that.
I was gonna say, like, because you have a background kind of like what I have, where you know how business works in the US, you know how things are run in the US. If you transplant that to how we do things in Africa, it's very frustrating. Like, you have to. I don't say this
Yeah,
as
100%.
a positive, but it's something we need to work on, right? As a people, I think it's like
Yeah,
we go through some
business
stuff.
in America business in America, you can look at the scoreboard. You can run up the numbers and look at the scoreboard and see who's winning. Here, the relationship, the relationship that you have with the person who's reading the score could actually in, influence how they interpret how good or not good you are for them to be doing business with. And so
Right.
relationships are such a big part of it. And I think that's part of the frustration because sometimes building that relationship requires you to kind of put yourself in a position where you feel like you're kissing somebody's ass or whatever, and that's not necessarily a great way to feel, you know? So I understand the frustration of having to do business in an environment where, listen, this is A and B. This should inevitably lead to C. 1 + 1 should equal 2. This is black and white, but it's not that. There's a lot of gray area, and sometimes navigating that gray area is very frustrating.
Yeah, I cite this example, and like I'd done it for years, and I was always okay with it. I thought it was culture and it was normal. And then these last few times that I've been back, I'm like, wait, I shouldn't be doing this. So what was it? It was my local village has like a police patrol guys that will come and walk around, and I was losing stuff on my building, like people will steal my things. So in order to get the police guys to be around my property more, I was putting some envelopes under the table. You know how that thing goes, right? Or I'd buy them beers and drinks and stuff. And I kept asking myself, like, am I like being corrupt by doing this, or am I just like kind of
Man,
hooking them up?
here, giving them beers won't even help. You have to build them a police post and put it outside of your gate if you want them to show up.
Exactly. So it's like for them to do their job, I had to kind of incentivize them to be around my area more. And soon as I
Yeah,
started doing that, I wasn't none of my stuff's been stolen since I've been back. So like,
yeah,
so I think it's culturally very difficult the way we do things. It's not right. It's not right, but it sucks. And I think
yeah.
Western people sometimes will have a difficulty understanding culturally just how we do stuff, right?
I got to say this to you too, Nana. Okay, I genuinely feel like O'Shea's intentions were correct based on the conversation that he and I had. Again, part of the reason why I felt an affinity toward him was that like he actually wanted to do good things. He wanted to empower people. He wanted to do good business, right? And I have my moments where I don't necessarily agree with some of the approach, but the intention was right. It's just unfortunate that some of the things that happened between he and I led him to feel like I wasn't a trustworthy individual, and so therefore it 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 went bad. It went left, and I wish it could be different, but I mean that's where we are with it.
Okay, so let me get to 3350 because that was a big one. Um, we're almost done. It's not a whole lot left. I'll set it to 32 so that we don't miss it right here.
You get for trying to fuck with me. Take a L, nigga. Sit down. Go to the back of the bench. Move out there where your daddy got his farm at and all that shit and raise goats. That's the best thing you niggas can do. Shut your motherfucking ass up. Cause see, gatekeepers, what they do is they want to keep everything in the dark and informal. And they expect that they can do their shit and won't nobody say nothing about it. Now I got a whole bunch of stuff to say about it. I got a lot of stuff to say about it. I know a lot about Agaba. This ain't the only thing I know about it. I know a whole lot about his ass. He got anything to say, and I can tell you right now, man. Want me to take the video down? Tell you what I can do. All the money that you owed and cost me since I've been fucking with you, all my forward progress and sleepless nights and me having to go head on and fight cases with these other niggas, it's about $200,000. You pay me that money, hey, I won't send enough some more. That's even split for me. I think it's about $250,000. What you owe.
Okay, so he's talking about. I don't know how do you think he came up with this number? If it's a difficult thing to answer, I can understand you. But where is he coming up with? Is he quantifying his time, his money that physically people took from him? Uh, did do you think your relationship with Oshay, however long you were working with him, do you think you benefited 200,000 within that stretch, or that you owe him 200,000, 250,000? He says.
I don't have any way of being able to calculate what he may or may not have spent in the process of doing his business, right? Um, I think there were certain instances. Again, we ran 2 events together, and so if I put the math together on the 2 events that he did, whether or not he considers those successful or not, um, that's not adding up to $250,000. Um,
What if I
I don't.
come to Kampala right now and I want to
Excuse
organize
me.
one
I
of
don't. I
those
don't
events?
think.
Go ahead.
I don't think that there's a clear way for me to say that I can honestly believe that he lost 250,000 for anything related to what I contributed or didn't successfully deliver for his business. I believe in accountability. I believe in accounting for the fact that I really honestly tried to connect him with people that I thought would help him and be good partners with him and be good business partners with him. And if things between them went left, I didn't have any involvement in that, and therefore I can't tell whether or not somebody got out of because I wasn't paying attention to it. I wasn't participating in the flow of information around that. So I wouldn't know, man. No, I'll be honest with you.
Right.
Like,
Because if
I
you
can't
watch,
dispute whether or not he has lost that amount of money. I can't say that.
right, I mean, if you listen to a lot of the videos, he seems to believe that anybody that you connected him with, you've somehow found a way to work around and get some money off the top, or like maybe you were involved in whichever schemes those people were doing, right?
No, trust me, I didn't benefit anything from anything that he had going on. The only money that I benefited from my relationship with Oshay was actually money that he paid to me directly. I'll admit that he paid me money directly. He didn't pay me anything near what he was saying that he did, but he did pay me money directly.
Okay.
And that's the only money that I ever received from anyone at any given time, anything that I ever did with him.
Did he pay you monthly, or was it just like a sporadic? Hey, this month I feel like giving you some money. Here it is, or was it like a contracted? I'm gonna pay you this salary every month.
Um, no, we never had any paperwork or any contract or anything like that. But I mean, he would break me off with some money every month for sure. But we didn't have any formal agreement.
Okay.
We didn't have any formal agreement. Every time I appeared on the Uganda podcast, he would pay all of the people who appeared on the podcast, which was very nice of him because people in Kampala don't exactly pay to appear on podcasts. Um,
Right.
and right, so that was very nice of him. I felt that was always very generous of him.
Yeah.
And the fact that he and I had a working relationship, and I feel like he valued the advice that I gave him, and he determined what he wanted to offer me as a token of his appreciation. But we didn't have any contract, we didn't have any formal working agreement, and I think that whole agreement lasted, I mean, a few months, a handful of months. I know that when we did the Kenganda events, the 2 events that he did, he added on a little bit more to give me in terms of like appreciating the amount of attention and time that I was putting into helping guide the team on managing the logistics of the event and everything like that. But again, you know, I wasn't
Yeah.
under the table
I will give
counting
it to him.
cash and,
I
and
will.
laughing and giggling and making away like a fucking bank robber.
Yeah, I will give it to him though, because like I'm probably his biggest critic on the internet, but I'm also very transparent and I like, well, I give people credit when I find or discover something about them that is worth giving them credit for. The overwhelming consensus is he's a very generous person, and I will never take that away from him.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Very good guy. If you have a good relationship with Oshay, he'll take the shirt off of his back for you. 100%. And I guess maybe the mistake that I made in all of this was the fact that he and I had a good relationship. I felt like maybe we were better off than I was. You know what I mean?
right. Um, so when is the last time you spoke to him? Like when's the last time you had a conversation with him?
When I showed up at his house that time.
Oh, so that's quite a while. It, at least a year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The Diageo. Okay, Diageo.
Yeah.
Is UBL owned by Diageo?
Currently, yes, but not for much longer.
Okay, so that they do in Uganda what they do in Ghana, because in Ghana, they usually would localize our breweries and they'll take it over, right? So they merge with some of them. So it looks like the landmark is the same, the way they operate in West Africa and in East Africa. How I would say, what was O'Shea's interest in Diageo? He seems to be really, really fond of it. Was it a status interest or was it a financial interest? Did you think he needed the money? Because I think he does fine, regardless of a deal or no deal, right?
Say that again one more time. I didn't
I mean,
get you.
like, I sense some obsession with Diageo, like he really, really wanted something to do with Diageo. Do
I
you,
think there was a lot of effort put in to establish good relationships with people who worked at Diageo, who
okay,
didn't reciprocate the type of energy that was wanted back. And it was frustrating.
okay. Was any of those people your contacts or people that you had recommended?
Yeah, everybody who he knew at Diageo were people that I had introduced him to.
Because
Yeah,
you worked there, right? You did
that's
work there, right? So you had a
yeah.
okay. And what is a
Yeah.
corporate? What was the corporate culture there like at Diageo? Did you like need to lead with some wallets to get through some stuff, or was it just good old meritocracy?
No, I mean there's no like autonomy for people who were kind of in our position, right? Because you have a good idea, but you bring it to your boss, and then your boss has to take it to their boss. So a lot of the time, there's just a whole bunch of BS and red tape that gets in the way of you actually making things happen. However much you may think you have a good idea in front of you, there's probably 2 and 3 layers of resistance and red tape that you need to cut through on the back end that may make things frustrating for you. And but because you're the person who's on the front side of the relationship with the external party, um, it can come across like Agaba's not trying to be helpful to me. Agaba's playing me for a fool when I could be in the boardroom defending and trying to make things happen and make things move, but ultimately I'm not given the green light. So I mean, there's a reason why I left that company because of a lot of um, dissatisfaction that I felt when I was working there in my own personal situation. But I mean, that's how it is when you're in brand marketing. I'm presuming with any company, really.
Okay. Um, we're gonna wrap this up because I know I caught you in the middle of your dinner, and I also have to take a work meeting in 15 minutes. But before we go, I'm gonna look through some of O'Shea's comments because I did promise him that, and get your response to it briefly. And then before we get to that, if there is a channel to communicate with O'Shea, is that something you do, or you think this relationship is already not salvageable?
I mean, I'm a reasonable person, and I've had worse fallouts with people. You know what I mean? I I don't feel like I'm the person who needs to offer forgiveness. I feel like O'Shea genuinely believes that he was wronged, and he has a lot of um, resentment for everybody who did him wrong. Um,
Okay.
Maybe if I were in a position to be able to have a face-to-face conversation with him, we could iron out our.
Oh, we lost Agaba. Yeah, connection issues. I think his battery. He had some battery issues. Let's see. There we go. You're back. You're back.
Sorry,
Okay.
did you hear everything that I said?
No, you went off a little bit, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying. you know, I don't think Oshay is my enemy. I think we are two men who've had misunderstandings and disagreements between each other that a well thought out conversation should be able to clarify. So if he ever wants to sit down with me, person to person, and talk, I'm willing to do that. But I mean, it's not my enemy. I don't wish him bad. I don't wish him any ill will. I just really don't want him to actually believe that I would treat him as though he was a target that I was trying to take advantage of. Like
Okay.
I can't fathom that he actually believes that.
Right. Okay, I'll take some of his questions because so this one is explain the way that scamming works in Uganda. Okay, because your homeboy got fired for that same how it works in Uganda from Diageo, isn't that right? So who is this homeboy that got fired and what was this? What did he do? Like what got him fired?
I believe my friend had some issues with Oshay with regard to a partnership that they were trying to put together on some events. Um, he didn't get fired. Um, he didn't get fired.
Oh, he didn't get
But
fired.
no.
Oh, okay, okay. Um, let's see. See. There's one more comment that I'm missing. Okay, so there's another one that he says. Some of these comments came in when we started, so if it feels like you've already answered it, you can skip it. But it says Agaba did this without an MOU, which didn't protect us. So did you deliberately not want to do the MOU?
You'll have to pardon me around what specific scenario that was describing. I don't believe that I ever signed an MOU on behalf of Kinganda. I was never in a position of power or authority to sign any MOUs on behalf of the company. Um,
Okay. I think
I,
he
I don't recall that I ever did sign any MOUs.
I think he sees it as if you knew that all you were doing required a memorandum of understanding, but he wasn't aware what it was. So he thought, it's like he feels like you knew for him to get what he wanted, there had to be some MOU signed, and you withheld that information from him. That's what I get from his. Then it feels like he didn't know the business or the corporate jargons that you needed that to make it official. You knew it, but then you didn't tell him that. If I understood what he said in his videos.
Um, if there is a case where there was a situation where there was not an MOU signed and I was in direct involvement with whatever conversations generated that business opportunity and an MOU wasn't signed, then um, I guess that's surprising to me because I don't recall any scenario like that. But yeah, I guess again, my intention was to make sure that O'Shea had his best opportunity to do business with the types of companies that I thought would be a good fit and a good partner. But at the end of the day, when we look at the scorecard, I didn't achieve that. And so I have to take that L on the chin and say, you know what, Agaba, you tried your best, but at the end of the day, you weren't effective in helping move the needle the way that you thought you could. So if there was an MOU that missed and lost in the shuffle, um, I trust the intelligence and the savviness and the business savviness of not only O'Shea but the other individuals that he has employed within his business to pick up on that. But I can't recall a specific scenario like that.
Okay. Um, Salute to you, Alfredamos. I see you in the chat, bro. Uh, let's see. I think I got a couple more shit commentary. I'm taking O'Shea's because I didn't want to. I wanted to reserve this interview for you because this is how we planned it. So I didn't want to go off plan. Usually people do plan things and then they go off plan. And you know, I didn't want to do that. I'm not a drama channel. I'm not here to do the drama stuff. If Oshay wants to, unlike him, when I go on his stuff, he times me out and he doesn't want me to speak. But if he wants to have a conversation, we can have it. We can schedule one, just like I did with you. I'll be fair to him, and he can do it here. I don't have to go on his platform. He can come here and do it here, right? Okay, so he's saying in response to what you just said that this guy was forced to resign. So you can't answer for this guy, right? Because you don't know, unless he's told you that. You probably have to come here
I,
and
I, I'm not privy to the inner workings of what decision was made by him on why he decided to leave that company. I haven't been told that. I can't assume that that's correct information, but you know, I'd like to believe that he wasn't fired. I know he was under investigation, and
okay.
because of some some issues that were raised as a result of his dealings with O'Shea. I know he was under investigation, um, but
Yeah.
whether he was fired or forced out or anything of that nature, I can't speak to that because I don't know that information firsthand.
Right. You know, for an American audience, this sounds like crazy in terms of the corporate culture. But the layout is like, I'm looking at my Ghanaian example with the Ugandan one, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is just how people do things over there, man. There's nobody lives on a salary in corporate Ghana or in corporate Uganda. There's always some dealings that goes in there, even the people at the top. I'm not glorifying it. Maybe that is what is setting us back. You can make that argument, right? But this is just the nature of the
Yeah.
business. So far, I haven't heard anything that looks too schemy or large scale. And like I said, Oshay says we can talk. I'm gonna see if I can talk to him another time, and maybe he can explain the numbers because I want to see where that $250,000 went. Before you go, if I went to Uganda and I set up one of these events, what would it cost me? Like just ballpark. I come out here and I just set up one of those events.
Um, man, that event. Let me tell you something. First of all, I was actually very proud of the event that we did. That speed dating event was legit, man, and it was very well done. And I think one of the reasons why the money that was spent on that came at a premium was that you know O'Shea wanted everybody to be very well taken care of. So he was giving away free food and free drinks, and there was a lot that the average event planner and the average event organizer wouldn't have offered to the people. Um, and so I would estimate to say that an event like that could probably cost you in the range of maybe 20K done that
US,
way.
right? USD.
Yeah,
Okay. Which for Uganda, that's
yeah,
you can get quite a lot. For Zambia, you definitely get a lot for 20,000. But yeah.
yeah.
All right, man. Hey, I'll give you the last word and we'll wrap this up, man. And before you go, I just want to thank you for taking the time. I know I caught you doing your own stuff. This was really short notice and I know it's not easy to, sit in front of 100 people and say your side or explain your point of view from these allegations. But I'm glad that I was able to at least provide some, even though however small the channel is, I wanted to at least give you the opportunity to come and explain your side of the story. And we'll stay in touch, man. I'm supposed to be in Kenya and in Zambia here in the next few weeks, but I think I'll throw in a Uganda, and I'd like to meet you in person. That'll be nice. So let me give you the last word, and we'll wrap this up, bro.
Yeah, man. I think Nana, I appreciate you extending your platform to me to answer the questions that you had for me. I think at the end of the day, man, we're in an era where there's so much opportunity that we can extract from working together and doing well. And my intention was to work together and do well. And however many mistakes I made along the way, I own my responsibility for that. If I disrespected my man Oshay and made him feel like I was somebody who he didn't want to put his trust in any longer, I'll hold my responsibility for that. But my credibility as a person of ethics and integrity is something that I value a lot. And so I just couldn't let that go unanswered. But I wish Oshay nothing but the best, man. I think he's a great, creative, very, very ambitious person who's going to do a lot of great things. And I hope that he achieves everything that he wants to, man. And if it is written that he and I are going to have a conversation and, you know, realign our understanding of one another, then it will be. But if not, then, you know, that's God's will too. But I wish everybody the best, man. That's all I got to say.
Hey, bro, thanks for coming through, and then we'll take it offline, bro. Thanks for doing this, man.
All right, man. Take care.
Cheers.
Stay safe. Peace.